Hi everyone, William here with the Grand Duke Dmitri Diary series, and I must warn you in advance, one of my dogs has been coughing and one has been whining, so yeah, par for the course here. All right, we've got some new short diary entries today. We finished yesterday with the long entry of the 29th of October. So now, as per Dmitri's usual custom, we're going to go in and fill in the blanks for the last 9 days. And I will just point out that all of these diary entries are describing days that took place before Dmitri knew about the Bolshevik Revolution. So he actually wrote them after he knew about the Bolshevik Revolution, but the events they described took place before the Bolshevik Revolution. Okay, so in the last video, two topics. One was Dmitri's gambling problem, and he'd gone and lost more money, which we'll also talk about today. And the other was this sort of volatile relationship that he had with Lady Marling, which we'll also talk about again today. All right, so yeah, let's get into it. So we're going to be going through from the 20th through to the 24th. Here we go. Friday the 20th and Saturday the 21st. I didn't do anything in particular. I got up around 10:30 and read until lunchtime. I played tennis in the afternoon, and on Saturday went riding alone and then stopped by the Minorskys for a visit. On Friday the 20th of October, the Marlings gave a big dinner, and incidentally, Filipov and Ravich were among the guests. We played poker. Lady Marling, Filipov, and I went riding Saturday morning. Sunday, 22nd of October, I played tennis in the afternoon and dined at the Yevrenas, after which we played bridge. It's always surprisingly nice and cozy at their place. Monday, 23rd October, the day passed quietly. I dined at home, and it was pretty icy and strained due to the aforementioned situation. 24th October, Tuesday, I played tennis in the afternoon. I'm trying to spend less time riding à deux with Lucia. I dined with the Minorskys. Meidel, both Blooms, and Astel were there. The latter must have been phenomenally bored because our host spoke Russian the whole time. We played bridge, which dragged on for a phenomenally long time. Around 1 o'clock, Meidel and I, this is 1 a.m., Meidel and I stopped by the club for a minute, the result of which was that I stayed until 6 o'clock in the morning playing cards. I lost phenomenally. I simply could not win anything. It was just enough for me to take a card for it immediately to be beaten. Just poison. All right, so as I said, more or less a continuation of things that we covered yesterday, but we learn a little bit more about them. So Filipov, if you'll remember, was the second in command of the Persian Cossack Brigade division, actually second or first in command, and he was a person that Dmitri didn't particularly like. Dmitri had known before the revolution, but it's really interesting to see this. This would have been quite different for Dmitri from the kind of people that he was socializing with in Petrograd and Moscow, particularly before the war. It was probably a good experience for him. I mean, if he didn't have the constant anxiety about his family back in Russia and what was going to happen, then yeah, it probably would have been quite a good experience for him. Ravich, the next person who's mentioned, was the commander of the Tehran Cossack detachment. So this would have been the detachment of the division that was stationed. This particular detachment was stationed in Tehran and was, covering that territory, the city, If I recall correctly, Ravitch is another person whom Dmitri really ended up disliking. But on this occasion, he was socializing with him because this was one of the people whom the Marlings invited to their dinner. And even before the dinner, Dmitri had stopped on his own to see the Minorskys. This is the first time that he's mentioned them in the 1917 diaries, although they'll be important for the rest of his stay in Persia. And I'm particularly impressed by the Minorskys. Of all these people that Dmitri talks about, they are among the ones that I would most have loved to sit down and talk with myself. The husband was Vladimir Fyodorovich, and his wife, Tatiana, and he was chargé d'affaires at the Russian legation. My Great Dane is flipping his ceramic bowl around. All right, and he would become a professor at the London School of Oriental Studies at the University of London. I myself went to the School of Slavonic and East European Studies at the University of London, and he was, one of the world's foremost experts on the Middle East at that time. He appears in various books and wrote books himself. And, this was definitely a good connection for Dmitri to have, not in the sense that it was expedient, but in the sense that he would have learned a lot from them. Okay, so where are we next? So when he in the Yevrenos, he mentions that he goes by dines at the Yevrenos on the Sunday, and he really likes both of them, especially her. It's always nice and cozy at their place, he says. So kind of a family atmosphere, I guess. I don't know if they had kids or not. And then he refers to the situation with Lucia when he says that it was pretty icy and strained due to the aforementioned situation. Well, that situation was, of course, this tension with Lucia. And putting that in context, Dmitri had been really depressed because of what was going on in Russia and because of his huge gambling loss. And that was kind of what started all this. Lucia sort of misinterpreted it to mean that he'd become cold toward her, that he'd gotten tired of her, and that apparently, according to him, was how she was interpreting his depression. So anyway, what do we have next? Well, the Meidel, we already know. Meidel, this fellow that he'll go off to the club with, he was also with the Persian Cossack division. Then Bloom, both Blooms, husband and wife. I know we'll hear more about them later. I don't really have anything to say about them now, except that Bloom was, funnily enough, I don't know his name. Dmitri doesn't mention it, but does mention the wife's name. He was a Russian consul in Tehran, and his wife was Ksenia Nikolaevna. Then Astel, who was on staff at the British legation, so they're all there at this dinner hosted by the Minorskys. And the interesting thing is that, Minorsky was a very cultured person. He spoke English, at least he would later when he was a professor at the University of London. But, Dmitri says he spoke Russian the whole time, even though Astel was there. So that wasn't terribly kind or tactful of him, but oh well, maybe Estelle invited himself or something, I don't know. So then they all play bridge, and that's really not Dmitri's thing, as much as he likes cards. So it dragged on for a phenomenally long time. I warned you about his favorite new word, phenomenally. So then the gambling loss. Poison, he says, just poison. I couldn't win anything. The minute I touched the card, it turned out to be a bad one. well, you know, tant pis. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. Oh boy. Okay. So what do we have next? Well, a very interesting state funeral that Dmitri describes very sort of meticulously, because he's obviously fascinated by it. So we'll do that, and then we also are going to have a gazelle hunt out in the desert. So very interesting stuff. Before we go back to the next long diary entry with, you know, diving back into current events. All right, so I hope to see you for all of that. Bye.